All right, Steeler fans, it's time for the winners and losers. Thanks to our friends at DraftKings for sponsoring us in the early portions of this season. Remember, check out the DraftKings Pick 6 app. Use the code CURTAIN, CURTAIN. Bet $5, you get $50 in free plays. This is only good until September 19th. So make sure you go. Again, DraftKings Pick 6 app. All you got to do is pick the certain players over a certain statistic. You can win yourself some cash. Use the code CURTAIN. Go check it out. Let's talk about some winners and losers here, folks. 9 winners and 4 losers after the Steelers' 18-10 win over the Falcons. We're going to start with the winners like we always do. Chris Boswell, of course, he's going to top the list. 6 for 6 field goals made. He made kicks of 57, 56, 51, and some that were in the 40 range that felt like chip shots after those lengthy field goals. But 6 field goals, he accounts for every single point the Steelers made. And, oh, by the way, he also got called in to punt. Now, if you watch the game, there were people that were probably thinking, oh my gosh, like Chris Boswell is going to punt the ball. I said this in the post-game show, and I'll reiterate it here. Chris Boswell has done some punting in his life. And I believe that when he was actually coming into the league, you're just trying to think about Matthew Wright. You're bouncing around teams. You're just trying to get a shot. Like, just give me a shot. He's out of Rice. And that was the school, by the way. He's out of Rice, and he's just trying to find. He did some punting, I believe, for the New York Giants and some kicking. So he's trying to do both. A lot of kickers have done that before settling in on one. So it's not like the dude was never punted before, but still impressive. And it was a pretty good punt. It was a line drive, but the Steelers fielded it well, or they didn't field it well. They covered it well. So Chris Boswell, how do you not have him atop the winners list? Great job. The Wizard of Boz, they needed every single one of those points. Kudos to him. Deserves to be on the winners column. Let's go to the next one. Deshaun Elliott. Deshaun Elliott, 4 tackles. This is the stat line. 4 tackles, 1 solo. He had 2 pass defenses, and he had an interception, and a great interception at that. That diving interception really kind of helped slow down the Falcons' momentum that they had built up in the early portions of the game. I'll say this, though. Deshaun Elliott's presence on the field was noticeable. And I've said this all along, that I felt that Deshaun Elliott's presence alone is going to allow Minkah Fitzpatrick to free up. But I'll tell you what, maybe I undersold this guy. I was saying that maybe he's more akin to like a Terrell Edmunds. Terrell Edmunds does not make that interception. I think we all can admit to that. He does not make that interception. He doesn't have the ball skills to make that diving interception. So maybe I undersold Deshaun Elliott just saying that he's going to help Minkah Fitzpatrick do Minkah Fitzpatrick things. Maybe this guy's going to be a force himself. I don't know, but he's a hell of a player. I think he's only going to get better as he gets more comfortable. Deshaun Elliott deserves to be on the winners list. Now, the next winner is going to be debated by some, and that's fine. I'm here for it. It's Justin Fields. I want to read you his stat line. It's lengthy, so buckle up. He was 17 of 23. He threw for 156 yards, a 6.8 yard average, did not throw a touchdown, also did not throw an interception. He was sacked twice for 23 yards. He had a 91.9 rating, and he had 1 fumble. Now, he also had 14 carries for 57 yards, a 4.1 yard average, and a 12-yard long. So I'll say this, kind of alluded to it in the first half, but I'll say this again. I think that the Steelers made their decision to go with Russell Wilson. And obviously, because it's the way that the NFL works, they started to build their offense around that quarterback. Now, if anyone out there is thinking, well, they can just have the same plan for both quarterbacks. No, I don't think you can. Russell Wilson is not the mobile quarterback that he once was. And I don't know if he's ever been the runner that Justin Fields is. So I think that the Steelers started to put together a plan. And then all of a sudden on Thursday, when Russell Wilson talks about tightness in his calf, everything has to change. And you saw early in this game a nervous Justin Fields. You saw a botched snap right out of the gate. And then you started to see everyone kind of settle in as the game went down. Arthur Smith started to figure out, okay, here's how I have to kind of call this game with Justin Fields under center or in the shotgun, whatever. But it's different than Russell Wilson. So if the team had been practicing and preparing for a Russell Wilson start all week, and then they have to switch to Justin Fields, I don't think it's just like, oh, we'll just turn the page. Here we go. Let's just run these. Did they have some Justin Fields plays? I'm sure they did, but they weren't prepared for him to start. This was, in Mike Tomlin's words, getting on a moving train, and I thought he did a good job. I thought he acclimated himself well. But I'm going to say this. I said it on the postgame show, and I'm going to say it again. If you want to know, how do the Steelers trust Justin Fields? How much do the offensive coaches and Mike Tomlin, how much do they trust Justin Fields? I want to go to the very end of the first half. Now let's set the stage. The Falcons punt the ball. The Falcons give the ball back to Pittsburgh. There's 32 seconds left. The Steelers are down 10-6. Okay, so they're only down 4 points, and they're going to get the football to start the third quarter. And there's 32 seconds left on the clock. Now, I want you to think to yourself, wherever you're watching this, listening to this, I want you to think, when Kenny Pickett, Mason Rudolph, or Mitch Trubisky were the quarterbacks of this team, what would the Steelers have done with 32 seconds on the clock? If you're sitting there and you're being honest with yourself, and I don't care if you're the biggest Kenny Pickett fan or Mason Rudolph supporter in the world, you would know that they would have kneeled out the clock and lived to play a third quarter getting the football. That's what they would have done. So what do they do with Justin Fields? Now, this is a guy, again, a lot of people have written him off, saying he's no good. They trust him enough that they come out and they throw the ball. First pass, Calvin Austin the third. Completion. Should have called timeout. They didn't, whatever. Next pass, Pat Freiermuth. Completion. He gets out of bounds, stops the clock. All right, so now you're on that cusp. What are you going to do? Most of the time, you have some timeouts. You're going to go down the middle. Really creative play call. Bootleg left, field stops. George Pickens is going against the grain. He's not going with the quarterback. He is going against the grain to the opposite sideline. Fields delivers a beautiful pass down the sideline, and Pickens actually gets out of bounds unintentionally. And even with only 1 second left, but it turns out 3 seconds because his foot did go out of bounds. Now the Steelers are in field goal range. Chris Boswell nails the kick, and they go into halftime trailing 10-9 and getting the football instead of being down 10-6, getting the football. That's how much they trust Justin Fields. Maybe that's not a big deal to some people, but it was a big deal to me. I'm watching this game thinking, wow, this is a change. Kenny Pickett would have been told to kneel that ball every single day and twice on Sunday, but not Justin Fields. Keep that in the back of your brains. Let's go to the next winner. Rookie debuts. How about Peyton Wilson? 3 tackles, 3 solo. Was noticeable. Saw him all over the field. Zach Frazier, outside of the one botched center quarterback exchange, very solid play. Even drew a holding penalty while he was climbing to the next level. Beanie Bishop Jr. That's right. I didn't know he was a junior. Beanie Bishop. He's an undrafted rookie free agent, gets some serious playing time, 4 tackles, 4 solo. The biggest tackle probably comes on the last drive. Kirk Cousins hits Ray McLeod. Yes, that Ray McLeod on the sideline. Bishop tackles him inbounds, keeps the clock moving. Steelers end up winning the game. I thought these rookies played extremely well, and I'm looking forward to seeing some other rookies join them soon. Roman Wilson might be back next week. Troy Fautanu could be inserted into the lineup soon. This rookie group, and I say group because it's not just the class because Beanie Bishop wasn't drafted. I thought that was a very, very good debut, especially Peyton Wilson and Zach Frazier. They were called into, I didn't think Peyton Wilson was going to play that much, but he did a great job shedding tackles, shedding would-be blockers and getting tackles. Fantastic job. Zach Frazier, again, top-notch stuff. Really, really good stuff. Let's go to the next winner. The takeaways. Steelers had 3 takeaways. They needed every single one of them. The 2 interceptions, Dante Jackson, already talked about Deshaun Elliott. You have the fumble recovery by TJ Watt when it was a botched snap, when the motion man, the jet motion makes contact with the football. The Steelers are going to have to be this type of defense early in the season until their offense can kind of get up to speed, create takeaways, win the turnover battle. They were +3 in the turnover battle. That's job well done. Job well done. The next winner, TJ Watt. TJ Watt. Of course, TJ Watt. TJ Watt, man, that guy has done so much good stuff. I honestly find myself watching TJ Watt play, and I'm thinking, how can this guy get any better? How can this guy do anything that makes you still scratch your head and say, he's amazing? Yet he finds a way. He has a stat line that reads 4 tackles, 2 solo. He has a sack, 2 tackles for loss, 3 quarterback hits, and a fumble recovery. But this dude probably should have had 3 sacks, 2 of them being strip sacks. I mean, it's incredible. It's incredible. TJ Watt could be on this list every single week, and I've been determined to say that if he deserves it, I'm going to give him the credit that is due. So some people might say, okay, here we go. TJ Watt. Yeah, he's on the winners list because he should be on the winners list. Kudos to TJ Watt for another fantastic game. Already putting together a resume. All right, the next winner is George Pickens. 6 catches, 85 yards, 14.2 average, no touchdowns. He had a 40-yard long, 7 targets, 6 catches on 7 targets. Oh, and by the way, minus 10 yards rushing. Hey, Arthur Smith might want to just leave the George Pickens running plays. We don't need those all the time. I love the guy. We don't need those all the time. Let the guy run down the field. Let him do some damage. He is amazing. And this is something that, I talked with Scott Kennedy. He was on my podcast, and that ran on Friday, Behind Enemy Lines. I also went on another podcast that invited me on to talk about the upcoming game. They're a Falcons podcast. And they all said, man, they're going to lock George Pickens up. I think AJ Terrell is going to be up to the task. I don't know. I got to disagree with that. 6 catches, 85 yards. He did have a big play negated by an offensive pass interference that I don't think was offensive pass interference. That would have put him over 100 yards receiving. George Pickens, a winning performance. He and Justin Fields have a very good connection. We'll put it that way. The next winner is Dante Jackson. Dante Jackson is a guy that a lot of people just kind of just left for, he's just kind of like the trade with Carolina. Deontay Johnson goes to Carolina. They do a pick swap. And, okay, just fine. We'll take Dante Jackson. That's the way a lot of people viewed that trade. He was just like some toss-in player. Do you guys want Dante Jackson too? Because we're trying to unload his contract. I do not think he was that type of player. I was listening to Mike Tomlin before the game. He was being interviewed by Bob Labriola. And this was on the Steelers live coverage prior to game time. And Bob Labriola asked a great question. Mike Tomlin even said it was a great question. And that's with Joey Porter Jr., get to him in a second, that he's so good that he's going to follow their best receiver. But that means you have to have a really good number 2. And you think last year, Patrick Peterson, no. Levi Wallace, definitely not. And any other number of player they had over there was not really even close to up to that stature. But Mike Tomlin said the one thing is not just that you have to have a really good number 2. That number 2 has to be able to play both sides of the field. Because if Joey Porter Jr. is going to follow like a Drake London around, then Dante Jackson's got to be able to play all over the field. And he could do that. And he did that. 2 tackles, 1 solo, 2 pass defenses, 1 interception, a really huge interception in the second half, but probably he should have had 2. There's a pass run in the first quarter, hits right off his shoulder pad. And it always reminds me of something my brother always said. My brother would always say when we would see Ike Taylor drop, I don't know how many interceptions, there's a reason he plays defense. And that's exactly true. Because if they could catch, they'd be wide receivers. So Dante Jackson, though, great debut for him in a Steelers uniform, and he deserves to be on the winners list. Let's go to the next one, Joey Porter Jr. His stat line is going to be a little bit different. I'll read you his actual stat line in case you're actually curious about what Joey Porter did in terms of the box score, if we want to put it that way. Joey Porter Jr. had 3 tackles. He had 2 solo tackles. That's it. And so a lot of people might say, well, Jeff, that's a winning performance. It's on the winners list. Let's look at Drake London's stat line. He had 2 catches on 3 targets for 15 yards. That's Joey Porter Jr.'s stat line to me. I don't need Joey Porter to go out there and rack up tackles for loss, solo tackles, combined tackles, whatever. That's what I want to see. What you saw in this game is that early on, they tried to run to TJ Watt's side, and he had a tackle for loss on Bijan Robinson. And they said, we're not running on that side anymore. And I don't think they did run to TJ Watt's side unless he was not in the game and Nick Herbig was. They did the same thing with Joey Porter Jr. Almost all the throws went opposite Joey Porter Jr.'s side. That's how good Joey Porter Jr. is. Drake London, 2 catches, 15 yards, just 3 targets. You don't see it because he doesn't get targeted, but that's because he's doing his job. And Kirk Cousins is not a stupid quarterback. He's not going to throw it to that side when his man's covered. So there you go. There are the 9 winners. Let's go to the 4 losers, all right? This shouldn't take as long. Though when you win, it doesn't take this long. First loser, though, is what I call money down success. The Steelers on offense, you got to win on the money downs. You got to win on those third downs. They did not. They were 8 for 17 on third downs. That's below 50%. That's my Mendoza line. They were also 0-1 on fourth downs and 0-2 in the red zone. That's just not going to cut it. I understand they win the game 18-10, but you want to see the offense have more success on those crucial downs, third downs, fourth downs, and definitely in the red zone. Going to have to see improvement there, but that's a loser. The next loser might be the biggest loser of all, and that's the officiating crew. They're just too involved. You could talk about the fiasco that was when the Steelers thought that it looked like it was a first down. Then they said, no, it wasn't a first down. It was fourth down. But then all of a sudden they realized, no, he got the yard to gain. Let's go back. Now it's a first. It was a cluster F of all cluster Fs. And you had both teams not really knowing what down and distance it was. Just really bad stuff. So there's that. You have the missed face mask where Jesse Bates rips off Najee Harris's helmet. Not called. Right in front of people. Then you have the offensive pass interference, which I thought was just really, really ticky-tacky on George Pickens. You have the TJ Watt strip sack that I already talked about where he timed it perfectly and they called him offsides. And then let's also not forget when George Pickens has the fantastic catch down the field, he is not touched and they rule him down by contact and they negate probably at least 6 to 8 yards of extra yards after the catch. And just so you know, Mike Tomlin's not allowed to challenge that play because if a player is ruled down by contact, then that play is basically dead. So the officiating crew, everyone says it all the time. Well, it's week 1 for them too. No, it can't be that. Not for the officials, not for the refs. You can't say it's week 1 for them too. Not when these plays have really huge impacts on the game. Don't forget the TJ Watt negated strip sack. The next play was the Kyle Pitts touchdown. The offensive pass interference call, that negates a huge play, and it's this constant momentum shift, not from what the Falcons are doing, but how the officiating crew is calling the game. That's why they're on the loser list. Let's go to the next one. I don't want to beat that dead horse too many times. All right, the penalties. The Steelers were penalized 9 times for 60 yards. 9 times for 60 yards. And those are just accepted penalties, by the way. If there were any that were deemed, they declined the penalty, then it's not going to count towards that yardage. So just the Steelers got to play a cleaner brand of football. You think about the holding calls. They only had 1 false start. I think it was Spencer Anderson that got called for a false start. They had an illegal motion one time. Van Jefferson didn't get set. So some of that stuff, clean it up. We'll see if they can do that in week 2. And then the last loser, unfortunately, is Cameron Johnston because of that quote unquote serious injury. It sucks. It sucks to see a guy that the Steelers were really excited about. Steelers fan base was really excited about. This is the first time they had seen. This is the first time we had seen a real legitimate punter in Pittsburgh for a really long time. And it looks like they're going to be dialing up. I don't know. Is it going to be Brad Wing? Is it Presley Harvin again? Is it Jordan Berry? I mean, now we're just kicking tires on previous punters. Maybe there's someone out there that could do a really good job that we don't know who they are. We'll see. but it sucks. It sucks. And Cameron Johnson's on the losers list because he is a poor performer, but because his season is probably over. Yeah, so that's lousy. So there are your 4 losers. So that does it. The winners and losers segment. It's it. That's a wrap. I'll be back. Make sure you check me out on Tuesday. Don't forget the giveaway first and foremost. All right, the giveaway for the Victory Monday shirt giveaway. Be on the lookout Tuesday for the tweet for the mailbag segment on Wednesday. Find me on Twitter at jhartman, HARTMAN_PIT. And last but certainly not least, today, Monday, I want to wish one of my daughters a happy birthday. Now, if you watched my Steelers grilling thoughts, we were preparing a little celebration. We celebrated on Saturday with extended family. We'll be celebrating today, Monday. She turns 9 years old. I cannot believe that little Caroline is 9 years old, but happy birthday. I know she's not going to listen to this, but I'll say it so it's on record. Happy birthday, my sweet girl. Love you more than life itself and more than you'll ever know. So that's a wrap for this podcast. I hope you all have a great start to your week. You should. Steelers win. I'll be back on Wednesday. You know how you finish these out. Be safe, be kind, and God bless. Have a great start to your week. We'll see you on Wednesday. Go Steelers.